And I'm delighted to be with such esteemed and eminent thinkers and doers. And I apologize, I just called you Sophie, didn't I? But in fact, you're Stefanie Hauer.
Yes.
Right. So
say it again, come on.
Stefanie Hauer.
Ah, that sounds great.
Is that right?
Yeah. What's the name of the company?
NatureRe.
Whoa!
Because
some applause, please. He only learned that last night that he's moderating.
Because you told me that when I said it was NatureRe, thinking that I could be continental, you're like, no. Anyway, the point being, Stefanie does amazing work advising companies on this topic, on how they can get better at not destroying the planet. Okay, is that a good way of describing it?
Yes, it's a start.
It's a start. We're going to get into it in more depth. Arthur Campredon, did I pronounce that correctly?
Perfectly. Thank you so much.
Footprint Measurement Director at CDC Bio, formerly at the French Treasury. So you've seen this game on many sides. And when we talk about footprint measurement, that's about really digging into the detail of the impact that a business has on the environment. And of course, many of you will know Géraldine Vallejo, who is the sustainability lead at Kering. You'll know Kering, those very nice handbags and the rest of it. But formerly an engineer. So again, we have a huge amount of expertise here. But before we get into the conversation, I just wanted to reflect on a couple of things that our Benjamin, our keynote, gave us. We have moved a hell of a long way when it comes to measuring biodiversity. And I'm quoting directly from what he told us. Once upon a time, it was a vague concept. Now we have frameworks, science-based targets. There are no excuses. There is no more wait and see because we've got solid answers. We know how to do this. So that's the kind of hard fact bit. But I do want to inject, nothing changes unless people are involved and people commit. And I want to talk a bit about that, motivations and how we got here. And I want to start with you, Géraldine, if you don't mind. Why does biodiversity matter to you? And was there a tipping point for you?
So why does it matter for Kering and for luxury fashion in general? So nature and biodiversity is crucial both for creativity and materials, because nature is an infinite source of inspiration for creative teams, and at the same time, the collection of our brands are mostly done with natural materials, such as cotton, wool, cashmere, leather. And with the first effect of climate change and also the degradation of soil, biodiversity loss, we see the impact on the availability and the quality of the raw material that we need for our collection. Mm-hmm. So keeping nature in good health makes good business sense. Investing in nature means investing in the resiliency of our supply chains. Mm-hmm. So that's so protecting and regenerating nature. That's not only the right thing to do, ethical thing to do. It's also from a pure business perspective in the long term. Mm-hmm. And so to your question, was there a tipping point? So I think we are lucky enough to have a chairman and CEO, François Répinaud, who asked the question back in 2011, actually, of what are all these services that Benjamin talked about, the ecosystem services, that are not taken into account in the economical model, because we thought that they were infinite, but now that we see that they are finite, mm-hmm. What if business had to take it into account? What would it be? And this is how we pioneered the environmental profit and loss account, which was a tool for natural capital accounting. It was a way to introduce nature within the P&L, within the profit and loss account. That was an important moment, but the tipping point, I think, was 2020 with COP15, with the discussion about the global framework. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be the year of COP15, but it was the year of understanding that there is a close link between the health of the planet and the health of people and the health of business. Mm-hmm. And so these two combined led us to take stronger commitment and stronger action on biodiversity.
Stefanie, was the tipping point for you the same thing? Or was it different?
Well, with our company NatureRe Capital, we are restoring land in Colombia. And when I first got there, I saw the depleted land there that's depleted from cattle farming. Cattle farming, I heard that 1,000 times before that, but when I saw it, it is heartbreaking, because that's what when I finally understood. There is one cow that sooner or later gets slaughtered, but in order to keep that cow, you're killing all the animals, all the plants of 1 hectare of land. So that's when I realized we're making a huge mistake. We only see the detail. We never see the big picture. The big picture, in this case, it's the country with the richest biodiversity. It's not just the cow that we're talking about. It is billions and billions of animals, big and small, that we kill before we can kill that cow.
So that cow's kind of like the metaphor for the wider story.
Well, metaphor is underestimating that huge damage that we're causing. So we're not really, not truly, not in our heart, not in our mind, asking ourselves, where does the stuff come from and where does the stuff go? And if we say, I throw it away, it's never gone. That's not true. It's just a false belief. You know, it's still there. If there are 300,000 different chemicals that are entering, that we make enter land and oceans, they are still there, continue killing animals and plants. And every time one of those species gets extinct, just in an area, this can be the tipping point of the entire ecosystem. So that was the moment when we realized we're completely underestimating the interdependencies and the huge damage that we're causing.
Arthur, was there a cow for you on your journey from, you started with governance and regulation, now you're providing solutions. What was your cow?
Well, it was not really a cow. It was more like papers and surveys.
And spreadsheets.
And spreadsheets, exactly. So, well, my tipping point was quite long, actually, because you can tell I grew up surrounded by mountains, blah, 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 etc., etc. And I started working on sustainable finance at the French Treasury, so Ministry of Finance. I started with climate, saying, okay, we have to put in place regulation, incentive to incentivize and enable like all the companies, financial institutions, to basically go towards the agreement of COP21, so COP21 on climate. And I was like, okay, we set up things, so that's great, we're going there. But when we come to figures on climate and the trajectories that we design, we were not there yet at all, even with the figures, and even though COP21 was like 7-8 years old. And then I heard about biodiversity and how much of a crisis it is, even bigger than climate. And I was like, oh, wow. And it touches me because I'm close to nature, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, we are late. The crisis is even worse than the climate one. And I was like, okay, we have to do something. And I want to just basically use the skills and the knowledge that I got on the knowledge of the finance sector to try to basically make them move, make business move, because I really believe that it's a condition of success. We cannot just do it by ourselves at the government, now in the private sector. It's going to be the whole society. And the whole society is basically based on companies and financial institutions. And they have to basically get there. So in the end, when CDC Biodiversité reached out to me saying, okay, do you want to work on this? I was like, yeah, of course, because we designed at CDC Biodiversité a footprinting tool, so exactly what we are talking about today, to basically assess the impacts and dependencies for all companies and financial institutions. So it's the first step, just assessing where you are. And then comes the real game. You have to align, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to work on that and then basically make things move as fast as possible.
So I do want to dig in a little bit more to what the footprinting tool does, because that's one of many solutions, and I'm sure everybody here has been blown away by all the different ideas that are doing the rounds here at ChangeNOW. But this is about making it happen. Making business make that change. Géraldine, you lead on sustainability for an organization in an industry, for an organization where people are very willing to pay a premium for whatever it is, for luxury or for the emotional knowledge that they're doing good. Tell us about the kinds of things that you are doing, and if you can, any thoughts you have on how that might propagate, be spread to the other parts of the clothing and apparel industry, which is, I recognize is very complicated.
Okay, so yeah, that's true. People in luxury, people are ready to pay a premium, but that it means that there is an expectation that the product is perfect all along the way, including on the impact on the environment and on people. So we have to be up to this expectation. So how did we make that happen? So first, having this EPNL tool, so environmental profit and loss account, enabled us to have this deep understanding on the interactions between nature and the business that Stefanie, you mentioned that, and also to translate that for the people at Kering at the different business units. So because the EPNL uses the same language as finance, it was a way to engage the finance people, very important in the corporate world. And then we would translate that operationally. What does it mean for the sourcing of material, for operations day to day? So that's one thing. And then we set up an ambitious strategy to have a net positive impact on nature by protecting and regenerating an area that is 6 times the total area that is needed for our business. So protecting 1 million hectares of irreplaceable ecosystems, because we need to protect this jewel. This is needed for the resiliency of the world. And 1 million hectares of regenerating land in the supply chain. For that, we created tools and action I won't develop here. But what is important is that we engage with other companies to do that. So, for instance, we created the Regenerative Fund for Nature to scale up regenerative materials and achieve this 1 million hectares of regenerative. We reached to other companies. We were joined by Inditex, the mother company of Zara, who believes in that and joined us on that journey. Same for protecting. We created with Mirova, and we are joined by L'Occitane, so in the cosmetic sector, to create this protection and invest in natural climate solutions.
And Stefanie, obviously you advise, help organizations in all different kind of walks of life. How do you help them? What's your guidance? How do you help them make these kinds of collaborations?
Well, let me give you one example. What we do with NatureRe, we are bringing together the finance industry and the corporate off-takers. And Kering is really a leading company here, I must say, but more and more companies are understanding that they are not only responsible for reducing the harm, but at the same time learning how to have a positive impact. And I can only, say 1,000 times a day, it's not about getting less bad. It's just
1,001.
Yeah. It's about trying to be really good for this world, nature positive. And so we asked ourselves, how can we do that? And we are restoring nature at scale. So if you look at the planet, you want to start in Colombia. That's the country where you have the most intense biodiversity and the fastest growth rate of trees. And as I said, we have a lot of depleted land there, and we do not plant trees at scale, but we enable nature to restore the ecosystems itself. So it's a nudging, that's all. And from that day on, nature does what nature does best. And we turn that into a financial model so that our partners can actually make money on being nature positive. And that is a very rewarding thing to do. So my job is actually to instill the fantasy that it's not just about reduction, but about creating something new and undoing the harm that we're causing. And that should be everybody's responsibility.
And into that space fit things like the footprint tool. Tell us about your plans with it, because you want to take it open source, is that right?
Yeah, it's correct, and it's going to be pretty soon. So indeed, we developed for like 8 years what Biodiversity needed, meaning a biodiversity footprinting tool. We are able to, based on the same model as the carbon footprint, based on data, which is like financial data towards like inventory, so all kind of data, measure your impact, your dependencies to nature, all along your value chain. And this is the key start. I mean, understanding where exactly your hotspot of impact, risk, dependency are all along your value chain is not something that you know, actually. You just know it. It's not possible. You have to understand that all the models, all the economic activities rely on another one that have impact on nature. And you have to measure where the most impacts are, so you can basically develop strategies, policies to address them. So it's going to be very key. And if we want to move forward, we basically, and coming back to what we need today, is that we need to speak the same language. I mean, biodiversity, economic world, it's two very, very different things. It's not the same principle, it's not the same language, etc. But we have some ways to reconcile the two. I mean, speaking about risks, for example, we're facing risk, right? You're a company, you are facing risks. How do I address them? I address them over the short term, the medium term, the long term, depending on the type of risk. Nature is a risk for the company. You have the transition risk for impact and the dependencies. You have the, for example, physical risks. With you address the two. You have make a link between what the company can do and starting with measuring with the footprint, and then in the end, making the link with the biodiversity crisis. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very key. And the tool, I mean, the what we call the global biodiversity score, is going to be open source, so each and everyone pretty soon on the 11th of April can be using this tool. So it's a big news for us, because we spent like 8 years, developed a lot, thinking about how to measure each and every pressure on biodiversity and how to affect all the impacts to what pressure exactly. So it's a very long process, so very happy to open it up to everybody.
Stefanie, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I really need to make the point. Thanks for doing all the work, and it helps organizations to prioritize, where to start. But it should never be an excuse. Like, as long as we don't have that Excel sheet, as long as we don't understand everything, you will never be able to understand nature. It's way too complex. So it is not a data revolution. That is just a support. It is not a tech revolution. It is not an organizational revolution that we're aiming at. It's a cultural revolution. Yeah, that is the bottom line. And we have to ask ourselves, we're sitting here actually, that's nothing new what we're saying. We have known that forever, that we're killing those species, that we make them go extinct, that the harm is so big. But why have we looked the other way? Why have we told ourselves it's not that bad when it is as bad as it gets? So I love everything
that... Sometimes
it's
too difficult. Sometimes people look away because they can't face the perception of the scale of the task.
But is it ambitious to want to survive? I mean, that's...
One might argue it's essential. Geraldine, leadership, this is another way of saying we cannot wait for perfect.
Yes. Yes, and leadership addresses also your question on what are the solutions and who do we collaborate with on that. And I think it's all the more important for topics on biodiversity, working with NGOs, with experts coming from different fields. So our cotton comes from around the world, so does leather, etc. We work with associations on the ground, with indigenous people who have the solution. Just have to go up the supply chain, so that goes up to here. So that's one thing in leadership. Another thing is to be innovative on financing mechanism and be ready to invest in the long term, because nature takes time, season after season. And that's what we did with the Climate Fund for Nature. It's a patient 15-year investment, which is not usual for our economical world today. Non-speculative, but you need to create this new financing tool to invest in nature.
Let me take your word, creativity.
Yes.
That is the most important word here, because it's such a positive word, and it should inspire us every day that this is the most challenging leadership task we have, and that we can redesign the entire economy, and that we have to do that. So we have to go fully circular. We're talking about biodiversity, and my answer to that is, if you're not fully circular, you're not allowed to scale anymore, because you will continue to cause damage, maybe less than you would have. Yeah? But still, go circular, go fully circular. Stop extracting the resources and start managing them. That's what I like about the word management, that you manage resources, you know. And this is, let me, with a positive note, it's our privilege as leaders. I always say the world now needs two things more than anything else. It's leaders and trees. And this is our time to shine, so please be creative.
So just a response to that, going fully circular, I'm pretty sure everybody here understands and would agree with that. Alta, you've been on the governance side, on the regulatory. Is this even possible without regulation?
Without regulation?
In mandating full circularity? I mean,
well,
can we do this unless we're told to do it?
I'm not sure. But what we can do is just set up regulation so that we are obliged to do it. And then it's a way to basically force everybody to do it. But it is possible, it is doable. It's within the policy makers' tools that you can do, actually.
Yeah.
We have no chance. I mean, we have to go fully circular. What would be the alternative?
Yeah.
Because if we're only less bad, if we're continuing the linear economy, we're only postponing the tipping points. And actually, I don't want to tell my kids, you know, I negotiated another 2 or 3 extra months for you of good life.
Yeah, thanks very much.
You have kids too, right?
I do, yes, I do, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents and uncles and aunties in here too. We started with tipping points, we kind of ended with tipping points. You've got about 40 seconds each for a conclusion. Géraldine, a call to action.
So my call to action would be that I know we're all working on what are the right KPIs to take the right decision, but my advice is take action without having all the KPIs and all the measurement, and use good sense and use the knowledge on the ground to go in that direction.
Arta?
Well, my message would be please start aligning. We talk a lot about, well, where do we are, what are my impacts, my dependencies, etc. The same way. You have some information, whether it's complete or not, start to align with the global biodiversity framework, which is the targets in 2050 where we should be in 2050. So aligning, meaning step by step, year after year, I change my business model. And I change and I make courageous and brave decisions each and every day so that my business model start slowly and slowly be aligning with the whole global objectives. And without this, well, we won't align, so we won't respect our objective, we won't respect our commitment, because we took the commitment to respect it, each and every one of us, because we have government that signed it. So now, just we need action, and we need to start to align, and basically that's why
we have the information, we have the models.
We have everything that we need.
Stefanie.
And take responsibility for the entire supply chain, upstream and downstream, and understand that this is not just the leadership for one company, that it's systems leadership, and that's a wonderful thing to learn. So go fully circular. Make no compromises here. We don't have the time. We're running out of resources and time in the same moment. And feel responsible for restoration of nature. That should be everybody's job now, not the job of a couple of biologists. And act like your life depends on it, because it does.
And just to comment
10 seconds.
On what you said, because it's very important that everybody knows that there is a difference between the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. The objective in 2050 for climate is to reduce the increase of temperature, so it's a reduction of impact. For biodiversity, it's different. we have to go positive at some point. So we have to limit our impact to 0 and then restore biodiversity. So if we want to commit and to align with our objective, we need to get there and we need positive impacts and we need solutions on the ground so that we restore and renature all our biodiversity and nature.
The solutions are here, our brilliant panel. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.